So today's session we're going to be talking about job descriptions, but just to do a recap of where we've come from. The first session we talked about the 4 key functions and actually how to build the 4 key functions, the fact that you want to list out your processes in the 4 key functions before you do anything else in TouchStone, and that's going to become why you do that will become obvious as we talk about job descriptions. So listing out of all the processes here in the 4 functions. Next step, building the organization chart, which was last week. So thinking about your business in the future, visioning where your business is going to be in the next few years, and then building the organization chart as a picture of that business in the future. Listing out all the positions you're going to need, thinking through each of the departments, and considering what positions are going to be necessary within each of the departments. Once you've gotten to that step where you've got your processes listed in the 4 functions, and then you've built your organization chart, the next step is to build your job descriptions. So to build job descriptions, we're going to start with that. It's pretty easy once you've got your 4 functions list done. So I'm going to add a box to the chart here just for fun. So this is what it looks like when you've got a blank job description. So I just added a box right here. So when I select that, it takes me to the job description for that position. The job description's got 2 sections. There's strategic and tactical. Strategic processes we define them as strategy work, so the higher level work of the business. I don't mean to say that that's more important than tactical work, but sometimes it is, but it tends to be the developing of things, the managing of other people, so managerial work, getting work done through other people, creating things, so strategic work. That work typically comes from the guiding the business area. So anything that you've listed here in guiding the business generally is in the strategic section of a job description. Not always, but for the most part, that's a good rule of thumb. So strategy work and then tactical work. So tactical is the technical work. What is common on a managerial job description is that you'll have all strategic processes, or mostly strategic processes, 90% strategic. So if a manager is functioning at a high level, so all of these people right here, they're going to be doing about 90% of their time on strategy type things, managing the department, managing other people. Whereas a tactical position like this one, say, that doesn't manage anyone else, may have all tactical processes and no strategic. So the type of position it is, it kind of dictates how much work will be in the strategic section versus the tactical section. If you have a position on your org chart that you're calling manager, like this one, say, and you go to build the job description for that position, and you're thinking of that person who's doing that work, and you start listing all of their processes in the tactical section, that might be an indication that you're not defining this managerial position very well. So the strategic or tactical section can really help you to make sure that you are having managers do what they're really supposed to be doing. Okay, so let's go back to this position. So strategic and tactical, that's the 2 sections of the job description. If you want to edit the title of a position, like I said last week, it's super easy. It's just click to edit. So I click right here, and then this opens to edit. Underneath the title is this field called the objective. So the objective is the purpose of the position. So why does it exist? The why of it. This should be a sentence, or a phrase. You can make it a list if you want to. So this holds, I can't spell today clearly. This holds a bulleted list if you wanted to put it that way. Why I'm showing you this is sometimes I see like the 3 main objectives of the position listed here. These would be high-level things like get a 60% conversion rate on every sale, or generate X number of leads a month, or develop and build all the processes for this department. So sometimes these are called key indicators or key objectives. So you could put those listed like this. Or a lot of times this is just a sentence or a phrase that says, for a salesperson, generate leads and convert those leads at an acceptable conversion rate. So something high level. And then save. What you don't want to do in this section is list the work, because the work is down here in the processes. So keep it really high level. Right here, just going over this, these two toolbars, this is how you remove a process from a job description. So I'll show you that once we add some processes to this. And then this is the export arrow. So this export arrow, you're going to start to see all over TouchStone if you're new to TouchStone, but it basically means the same thing everywhere. It's how you get the information out. So you can print a job description directly to your printer, you can export it to Word, to a PDF, or you can email it. Also on the job description page, you can print the operating manual for the position, or you can export it to Word. And the purpose of exporting it to Word would be so you could make adjustments to the spacing maybe of what goes on each page, and then save it as a PDF and have this external manual. So when you use the print operating manual, TouchStone's going to print the job description, which is like a table of contents for the operating manual for that position. And then it's going to print all the tools inside of every process, except uploaded files. There's no way to launch the software that was created in those uploaded files, because they can be Word, Excel, PowerPoint, or PDF documents, and then have that be seamless when you go to print it. So it will have a placeholder for the uploaded file and reference it, but it won't actually print the uploaded file. You'll need to go and print those in their whatever format they were uploaded in. So this is a nice way to get an external manual out of TouchStone. Having said that, those of you who have heard me talk before, I think it's a bad idea to export things and create new versions of things. One of the benefits of TouchStone is that it's all paperless, it's all in the cloud, and the most current version of everything is inside of it. The minute you start exporting things, you're creating additional versions. And then you get into this nasty habit of doing a save as on the computer, and suddenly your network is cluttered up with a bunch of documents and no one knows what the most current version is. So everything in TouchStone is the most current version. I also think it's a good idea to train your employees to live in a paperless environment, one that is more efficient. It's not efficient to email things to people, have that email come, view it, print it, put it somewhere, file it, even store it on the network. Try to accept this virtual environment that is inside of TouchStone. So rather than printing the job description, rather go to the URL up here, right-click copy, and then email that to someone. So when they click this, as long as they have a username and password to TouchStone, they can go right to that job description you were referring to. Inside of TouchStone, when you want employees to be referencing their processes and using them, they can learn to do that right inside of TouchStone. Give them read-only access and have them do it in TouchStone. So to build a job description, you use this icon right here. If you've created your list of processes over here in the 4 functions, then you're going to be able to add them to job descriptions quite easily by using this icon here called Add Existing Process. So when I select this, it takes me over to the 4 functions in a way. It's called Add Existing Process because it exists in TouchStone already on the 4 functions. So this is asking me, do I want it in the strategic or the tactical section? If this is a managerial position that I'm building the job description for, I would usually start with tactical and then look at strategic after that. If it's a strategic or a tactical position, so it doesn't manage anyone else, I'd probably flip this to tactical and start with that section. So now when I hit this subfunction drop-down, I'm seeing all my subfunctions from the 4 functions list. So this is getting, doing, guiding, running, all of them listed here. So think about the position that this is. So if this is a salesperson, then I'm probably going to be looking in the sales subfunctions. You could go to every one and just glance through it, but that's probably not necessary if you're focused on what is this position. Then you're going to know where the work is, because the subfunction it will dictate that. So again, if this is a salesperson, then I would look for the sales subfunction or the advertising subfunction, and then I would add the processes from that. So when I choose a subfunction like this one, it's showing me the list of processes that are in that subfunction on the 4 functions list. So then I would look through these processes and decide, what is this position accountable for? What is it that they do? Sometimes you're going to take the whole list. So you just add all these, and all I'm doing is holding my control key down and I'm adding them all. If I come across one, well, no, they don't really do this, then you can skip it and add the next one. So glancing through this, choose all the processes that this position is accountable for, and then you just hit save. So now TouchStone's added all of these processes, or linked all of these processes from the 4 functions list over here to this job description. So then I would go back, add existing process, stay with tactical, click the subfunction drop-down again, and look in the next function. So choose the subfunction you want to look in, and then glance through those processes. If you see any if you look at a subfunction and there's nothing that they do, no work that they're responsible for in that subfunction, then just go back here and go to the next one and look through that. Anything here, here, yes, yes, no. If you find something, then hit save and add it. So it's just a matter of using this tool to look through all the processes here and decide what each position is responsible for. When you've got a managerial process or managerial positions, keep it in the strategic section. I can go to like employee management here, and every manager in the business may do all of these managerial processes. So it's okay, and it's quite plausible for you to list a managerial process on every manager's job description. So if that will become obvious as you start to build these, but that's completely fine. You're going to have processes that are the accountability of more than one position and more than one person. So again, go through and find the processes that this position is responsible for and hit save. So once the job description's been built by looking over here and linking the processes from here to the job description, look through the processes and ask yourself, is there anything missing? When you list out the processes over here, you're thinking about them by subject area. When you go to link them, it's kind of bringing them to life in a way, because you're considering this being done. Who does this work? And then you start thinking about that position and what that position does. And you may notice, looking at it from this view, that you've missed something. You've got a process that actually needs to be on this job description that's not. So that's what this toolbar item is for. So if you click Add New Process, now I'm going to add a brand new process to TouchStone. So you put the name of the new process. TouchStone's going to ask you, where does it live on the 4 functions list? Because even though I'm adding it directly to this job description, TouchStone's still going to force me to keep the 4 functions list accurate. So this is saying, which subfunction does it go in? So choose the subfunction based on what this type of work is, and then hit save. So now this process has been added right here, and it's also on the 4 functions list, clearly, where I put it. And I can always see where a process lives on the 4 functions list on this little trail right here. So it's kind of a loop that the job description shows you, because it's in the 4 functions, it's on a position on that job description. And when you select the process, you can see where it is on the 4 functions with this little trail right here. And if you click this toolbar item, you can see which job descriptions it's been linked to down here. With this little link to job description tool, this shows you which job descriptions the process has been linked to. And I can also link it and unlink it from here as well. So if I click this orange position, it's going to remove it from that job description. And if I click this position, I can add it to the strategic or tactical section. So now it's added. So using the add existing process right here is one way to get processes on a job description. But once they're on the job description, you can make sure that the process is on all the correct job descriptions it's supposed to be on by using this toolbar item here. And if it's not, you can add it or re-add it to ones that you've missed, job descriptions that you've missed. When you add a new process to TouchStone, if you don't do it from a job description, so say you're on the 4 functions list and you go through and you're thinking, oh, I need a new process here in getting, add the new process right here, and then go to that process and go link to job description and put it on its correct job description. So once all the job descriptions have been built, this link to job description on the process tools page becomes a handy way to make sure that you link that to the correct job description when you add the process. So let's go back here. This, as I said before, is the remove button. I call it remove because it's just taking a process off a job description. It's not removing it from TouchStone completely. So if I hit remove, I'm going to say OK, and then that process has been removed from that job description. It's not deleted from TouchStone, though. The only way to delete it from TouchStone permanently is to go to the 4 functions and actually delete it. Here, we're just taking it off the job description that it's been linked to. And again, you can do that from this view as well. You can remove processes from job descriptions. So once the job descriptions have been built by linking processes from the 4 functions list, and then you've gone through the step of making sure that it looks accurate to you, that all the correct processes are actually on there, adding ones that are missing using this toolbar item. You can then also organize them just by dragging and dropping. So if you put a process in strategic and you're looking at it and thinking, oh, it really is tactical, then you just drag it up and down. It's super easy to reorder and adjust the processes. We have definitions for strategic and tactical, and you can find those. I gave them to you, but you can also find them here in the Resource Center if you forgot what I said. Having said that, in the end, it's up to you to define, what it is to you. I saw a count the other day, and they only in the strategic section, they had only managerial processes, nothing else that was like indicators or strategy. One company I saw one time was putting reference materials up in strategic and leaving tactical for just the work processes. So I'm saying that just because in the end it's up to you how you want to define things and how you want to organize them. Once the job description's been built and you've kind of assessed all the processes on it, a good plan at that point is to put the processes in order of priority. So most of these are, let's go back to this one, most of these are marked as complete, but if we go back to this one I just created, well, I don't have any red ones. So basically just take processes and put them in order of priority, how you want to document them. And these processes would be red if you didn't finish them yet or start to document them. So putting in order of priority, and then it's a good time to delegate at that point too. So if this is the salesperson and I've listed all the processes, I've got them in order of priority, I can literally say to the salesperson, okay, now go and start documenting your processes. I put them in order of priority, start with number 1. You can even go to the processes here in the title and give an assignment to someone, give it a due date. And then when I save this in the title field, if I go back here, you can see it right there, a tentative due date and who's working on it. So this is just a technique for doing project management inside of TouchStone, really. There's no reason to export things and create spreadsheets and kind of track the documentation of the processes. Just do it right here in TouchStone. know that whoever's been assigned to work on this process, their initials in it, and there's a tentative due date. They're going to have it done by that date. The manager who's managing this could even go up and search for somebody's initials or a due date to see what was due that day. When the process has been done, the manager reviews it, it's been approved and ready to implement, then you just go to the title, delete this, save it, mark it as complete. It's done, move it to the bottom, and go on to the next one. So slowly over time, the processes will all get documented. The more people you have involved in it, the faster it's going to go. So once you get to this point of all the job descriptions being built, you can look at your organization chart and kind of decide, do you have key people that would be instrumental in helping you document? If you're a larger company, the manager could kind of lead the effort and have key people underneath here working on the processes. So when deciding who to get involved in documenting, you want to choose people who have the knowledge. I mean, that's primary. People who know how to do the work well, who are open to kind of trying to consider how to innovate it and make it better. So the people who know how to do the work well. Another consideration is, are they good writers? I mean, that's something to think about. You don't want to throw this at somebody who has no computer skills and they're not a great writer and they can't spell. That's going to be kind of, difficult to get them to be successful in documentation. Another technique is to decide on a TouchStone administrator or power user. And this is somebody who's good at writing, they've got a good logical mind, and they can go and interview salespeople, service people, and write it out for them in TouchStone. And that's a good way of kind of, getting it to escalate without overburdening your technical people with having to document. So I'm talking about strategies to get the documentation done because at this point where you've listed your 4 functions, built the org chart, built all the job descriptions, that's an ideal place to go get people involved in helping you document. So let's talk about job descriptions specifically. Oops, that one's blank. Let's go to another one. So when you have a job description, it becomes a primary management tool. It becomes a wonderful management tool. In my opinion, and I've been a manager for a long time and used a lot of different management techniques and tools, it is the best tool for management. And I'll tell you why. If you can have a simple list of what people do, then that's a great start. Having an objective, clean, specific list that dictates or illustrates what each person does. So that's a management tool all on its own. What's difficult about traditional job descriptions is they're really hiring documents to a large degree. So these existing job descriptions will have like flowery language, they'll have very subjective things like be a leader or manage the sales department. I love that one. So for a managerial position, you say, your job is to manage the sales department. Well, what does that tell you? That's very subjective. There may be some practical things that you can draw out of that, but that statement alone is very subjective. So having this clear, consistent, specific list of what the person does, this is what the bookkeeper does. So that's a fabulous goal to get to. And the job descriptions in TouchStone give you exactly that. There's not any qualifications here. There's not any kind of subjective things. It's a very practical list. The processes for what that person does. And then furthermore, once all the documentation for each of these processes has been done, you have a complete training for how they do all that work. So it's not just a what they do, it's a how they do it. And for a manager, that is instrumental, because management gets to be very difficult when you're relying on an employee to do something, yet they've never been fully trained on how to do it well, or there isn't really a way that you've been able to define that they need to do it. So you're just kind of relying on the fact that they do it. And what happens to managers in that situation is they just become firefighters, because the only time you really realize there's a problem is when there's a clear problem. And so then the manager's running around and just kind of putting out fires everywhere. When you have documentation as a manager, you can then refer back to that documentation. So job descriptions are fabulous management tools, number one, because they give a list of what each person's accountable for, and number two, that list is clear and specific, and when everything is documented, there's a complete set of training and tasks on how all that work is done. So there are two ways that job descriptions are used in TouchStone and with management. Number one is with new employee training. So as a management tool, this job description in TouchStone is a fabulous new employee training tool. Because if I go and hire a bookkeeper, I've got 1 through 7 here on everything that that person does. When I bring them in for the first day, I can take them through the HR training, they sign all their paperwork, they get it all, they're orientated to the company. In fact, we have a great new employee onboarding system that's in the library under running the business that kind of goes through the step-by-step of like first, second, third day trainings. So once you get kind of all that environmental things out of the way and HR things, then you start the on-the-job training. So the job description tells me exactly what the on-the-job training needs to be. I can even put these in order of how I want this person to learn them. So we're going to do accounts payable first, then receivables, then purchasing, on and on. Then I can look at this objectively and say, okay, how long should it take someone, if they have the minimum qualifications, how long should it take them to learn how to do accounts payable in our company? The manager thinks about that, looks at the documentation. So we have check deposits, invoices, special invoices. They got to learn all of this. Maybe this takes a day, this takes 2 hours, this takes 5 days. So you add up all that time, and then you know how long it should take a typical person with the minimum qualifications to be trained in accounts payable. So I could then say the first 2 weeks of training are on accounts payable. The second month of training is receivable. The third is purchasing. Depending on the sophistication of the position, training could take days, it could take weeks, or it could take months, depending on how complicated the position is. But the power of this job description is knowing how long it takes, right? I know it takes 5 hours to train someone in accounts payable, or 5 days, because we have the documentation and the time has been estimated. So with that number in mind, it yields incredible power. First of all, it can help you to schedule the training out. Secondly, it helps you to gauge how well the employee is doing. Because if I know it should take 5 hours for accounts payable, and somebody's not getting it after 5 hours, it's taking 10, 15 hours, well, maybe I made a bad hiring decision. And isn't that great that I know that in the first 2 weeks rather than in a year later when they still don't get the payables right? So you can use it to kind of evaluate how employees are doing. You can also assign money to this. So if I know accounts payable takes 5 hours and I throw in another 5 hours of management time and I times that all by what I pay people, suddenly I know what it's going to cost me to train someone in how to do accounts payable. I know if I add it up for all 7 of these processes, I know what it's going to cost me to fully train a new bookkeeper, how much time it's going to take and how much it's going to cost me. That's an incredibly valuable thing. Because when you're looking at growing your business, if you can tell me what this position costs you to replace, to add a new one, then you know the amount of money it's going to cost you for the full training. Think about it for positions like this. If you know what it costs to train this person, to fully train them in all those processes, and then move them up here, and what it's going to cost to fully train them once they get here, and in the end what it's going to cost to make a fully efficient service person, well, you really understand your business at that point, and you understand how to scale your business, and you understand what it's going to cost you to scale your business, so you can plan for that. So new employee training, excellent for managers who are evaluating and growing their departments or faced with replacing employees, which is inevitable. The other side of this is it's fabulous for the employee themselves, because imagine the difference of coming to work for a new company and them just saying, okay, sit down with the bookkeeper. We know you know what you're doing because your resume said that. Just watch what she does over the next few weeks and then slowly start doing it. It's like, we call it the tribal method of training, where it's like the tribe teaches them. When you do training like that, it's frustrating for the person learning if they're a capable person, because there's nothing written down, there's no clear objectives, there's not even a list of what they do. So they're having to kind of figure all this out in this difficult way of like watching someone else do it. So that's frustrating for the employee. But imagine the opposite of that. We sit down with this new bookkeeper. It's like, this is your job description. This is exactly what you've been hired to do, and this is exactly how you do it. This is how long we think it should take for you to learn how to do this. We're going to have you read and study these processes in TouchStone, watch all the videos, and then you're going to sit with the bookkeeper over here after you've got all the material in front of you, and you're going to watch her do it. So it's a much different experience for the employee. So new employee training. The other way to use job descriptions is for ongoing training. So I have this job description as a manager. I have all my employees have been trained in these processes that are on their job description, and now they're doing their work. They go along with their work every day, and I have an issue, say. Some vendor calls me and says, I sent in my purchase order, it hasn't been paid yet. Or there's some issue with accounts receivable. We get the reports and we notice that, we're 90 days due to collect on some of our most major accounts. So as the manager, I'm being told by my boss that we've got, $100,000 in receivables that are 90 days out. And I think to myself, what? The process is, that can't be possible. So the first reaction from a manager would be to call up the bookkeeper and say, what are you doing? Like, what is your problem? Why isn't this happening? It's the management everyone hates. Why are you not doing it? You're not doing your job. Why didn't you make those phone calls? The bookkeeper's like cringing under a desk going, I don't know, this and this happened. And it's just this kind of drama-filled situation that everybody hates. The other way to do it would be, what's wrong with the receivables process? Why isn't it working? Sit down with the employee and say, these are 90 days out. Well, that's unacceptable. What's going on with the receivables process? What hasn't been followed here? Is it not working anymore? Did you fill out the checklist? What's happened when you made these calls? How can we make it better? So this is ongoing training. Either the bookkeeper is just not following the process at all, just forgot about it, isn't doing it. So she needs recorrection back to the process. This is how the process is done. Let's follow it this way. Why is it, what's not working about it for you? So the reinforcing. Or another situation that happens is that the process just doesn't work anymore, that there's some change that's been made or some issue that's occurred and the process isn't working itself. So either way, we reorientate the employee to the process and make sure they're following it, or we change the process. So ongoing training, the job descriptions are great for that. Also along the lines of ongoing training, every process that you document, you have to reinforce. So one method I recommend is that for every department, so every department, or if you have a smaller company and it's like you're the manager of everyone, then maybe it's a company-wide thing. So either company-wide or for every department, you should be having some kind of meetings going on. I'm assuming everyone does, and that's going to be the system of the week here that I'm going to get to in a second. In these meetings, you talk about what's going on in the business and, the typical things that we talk about in meetings. Either department meetings or company-wide meetings, make processes an agenda item on every meeting. Just 10 minutes maybe. Doesn't have to be a big long deal. The 10 minutes a week that you would spend on this, or the 10 minutes a month, is just invaluable. It's just not a whole lot of time, and the result that you're going to get from it is going to be huge. So what you would do is, let's say it's a sales and marketing meeting. It happens once a week. We would say to the salesperson, we're going to make the process of the month sales follow-up. It's on everybody's job description in TouchStone. You all should be following it and using it. That's going to be the process of the month. What we want you to do is, over the month, just pay attention to your sales follow-up. Look at the process itself. Look through the work plan. Look through the scripts. Look through our forms. As you're doing this work, double check how this process is working. What ideas do you have that could make it better? So this is articulated to everyone in advance. They have a whole month. They come to that meeting, and in the first 10 minutes of the meeting, the manager says, or you as the owner say, we're going to talk about sales follow-up today just for 10 minutes. What ideas do you have? And it becomes part of the culture. So when one salesperson says, well, you know, I've been using this follow-up technique that's worked really well, and I notice it's not in TouchStone, let's add it. Then it's like, yay, you're like the employee of the day. So you give congratulations, good job, thanks for that, and then you go and either innovate the process and make it better based on what people are saying, fix it if something's not working anymore, but the biggest result is that you've reinforced it. Like it's here for a reason. We all follow it. Employees naturally just kind of go off in their own directions sometimes, especially in sales, like creative work. So with that, you want to kind of capture the new things that they're learning and add it back to the process, but most importantly, reinforce the process. So use job descriptions for new employee training. Clearly, it becomes a checklist of everything that they need to be trained in. And then also use it for ongoing training. Use it in the way that you communicate as a manager to redirect or retrain if an employee is faltering or making them better. And then also use the job description as a way of reinforcing your processes all the time. I had a user ask me a few weeks ago or to say, we developed a process in TouchStone, so in January we're going to go through all of our processes and innovate them every January from this date to this date. And I immediately jumped on the phone with that person and said, that is like the worst idea I've ever heard. And the reason is you can't wait until January to redo everything. That's like having to redo everything new every January. You got to do it along the way. There's such a huge benefit for doing it along the way. Everything's up to date at all times, and you're reinforcing it with your employees all the time. So don't wait to any point in time. Keep the innovation happening all the time. So let's have one quick question. Okay, so what he's asking is what to do with job descriptions that you already have. So I don't have an example that I can pull up, but I think what's being asked is if you have existing job descriptions, like before you started using TouchStone, what I would do with those is replace them with the TouchStone job descriptions. So you can always make them an uploaded file. So you can create a process title and call it, salesperson's old job description, and then make that an uploaded file and put it on the TouchStone job description if you like. But a better thing to do would be to look at every item on that job description and turn it into a process. So if you have, a work item that says, follow up with all leads generated, whether they close or not, and make sure that all the information is added into the CRM. So that's like a job description item. Turn that into something that looks like this. Sales follow-up, put in the objective, and then all the step-by-step for how to do sales follow-up is inside this process. So that's one technique. Take those things that you're listing on that job description and turn them into TouchStone job descriptions. If there are things on that job description that are hiring related, like qualifications or minimum qualifications or like physical things that the employee has to do, you can add those to a recruiting and hiring process. Let me see if I have an example. So if you have a recruiting process down here, you can make a qualification and skills for a salesperson and then list those things there. These things like their qualifications, a degree or better, 2-year salary, good attitude, good initiative, dependability, these are all things that you're looking for and you should be interviewing for. But they aren't kind of active things that need to be on the job description all the time or need to be in front of the employee all the time. It's really just things you use to hire. If you've got subjective work items on those job descriptions like good attitude, well, you can either say, when we're hiring this person, let's ask them questions and analyze whether they have a good attitude, and it's either yes or no to that. If you want to take more responsibility for it, you can create a process called This is Our Attitude. And inside of it, you can have work plans, you can have videos on showing people what you mean by having a good attitude. And then that becomes a real process in TouchStone that you can link to a job description. So there's a difference between really delegating something and just advocating it. Just have a good attitude, everybody, and then I get mad at you when you don't. If you want to really delegate that and take responsibility for it, then build a process for it. What do you mean by have a good attitude? Also, if you have existing job descriptions, I know I just said a whole lot there. If you want me to give you, like, analyze it for you and tell you exactly what to do to build it into TouchStone, email me later and I'll take a look at it and give you some more direct feedback. But my opinion of that in general would be turn them into TouchStone job descriptions, because all the other stuff is really just about recruiting and hiring. It's the on-the-job actual processes which are important for employees to see on a job description. So the system of the week is on one-on-one meetings and performance review. So these two things help implement and use the job description as a management tool. So this one-on-one meeting, these processes are in the library. This is about kind of using the job description as a way to continually manage employees. So it goes in the category of ongoing training. So here on this agenda form, you should have manager meetings, one-on-one meetings with employees periodically. It's good management. So in these meetings, and they could be once a week for, if that's reasonable for the position, it could be once a month if that's all you can get away with. It should be no less than once a quarter, really. So this is, a half an hour meeting where the manager is sitting down with that employee and talking about how it's going. Not just about the things they did wrong or the everyday kind of things that come up or the on-demand types of things. This is about how is it going here for you. This has been proven, this one-on-one meeting process has been proven to increase employee retention, which is huge for businesses because you spend a lot of time and money getting good employees. Keeping them is essential. It costs you money to have to replace a good employee. So create an environment where they want to be, and having good communication and a time where you just take an hour, even if it's once a month, to sit down and look that person in the eye and say, how is it going? So that's what this is about. You can use the job description to help facilitate this meeting. So if we're having a sales meeting with a salesperson, and I know that one of the items I want to discuss with this salesperson is getting their conversion rate up, because I have a great sales process and quantification for all that, and I know that there are other salespeople doing better than this person, then we can talk about it in the meeting. My goal for you is to get your sales conversion up. Let's look at the process. Let's look at the sales process. How could this be better for you? What training could we do to help reinforce it? Or the other side, If you got a salesperson with great conversion rates, I've noticed that your conversion rate is fantastic. I think that is so amazing. What do you think that you're doing that's so much better? How are you achieving such a high rate? And then you talk about it. So use this as an opportunity to congratulate, but then also to zero in on work issues. So look at the job description, have that right here in the agenda meeting form. Put them side by side. All of this form itself can be used in the control panel right here. So as the manager, I can go to this manager one-on-one meeting form. I can go to the agenda form. I can fill this out for the employee. I can put in all their goals, things that I have for them. I can save this. Once it's saved in TouchStone, I can look at the last one that I did and then use that to do the next one. And all this can be saved inside of TouchStone, saved right back to TouchStone. Once it's saved, you can print it if you want to give it to the employee, or if you have to have a paper copy in a file, you can do that. But it's saved inside of TouchStone. And furthermore, once I, as the manager, am doing all this for my employees, and I'm doing these one-on-one meetings once a month, and I'm putting in what's happening in the agenda and what I talk to them about and what their goals are for the next month, my boss up here, if she's ever interested in, I wonder if she's doing her meetings. I wonder how that department's going and how the people are in that department. All she has to do is run a report and say, give me the agenda meeting forms for this month, and she can see all those things. So without having to come to me and say, well, are you doing that? How are you doing it? They can see it right through TouchStone. So that's one of the benefits of doing it, in the control panel. So one-on-one meetings, having some kind of structure for that where you're sitting down with employees and giving them uninterrupted time to talk about how the work is going and how they are doing personally. If you've ever had an employee just walk into your office or send you a letter saying, I'm quitting, and you just had no clue, like it was just out of the blue, my guess, unless they had a death in the family or some huge thing happened that forced them to quit right away, my guess is that there is no good management going on with that employee. The manager hasn't taken the time to really understand who they are, how they're doing, and making sure that the business is giving that employee what they need and that the employee is giving the business what it needs. Second process I just want to highlight for the process of the week is performance review. So if you're having these one-on-one meetings throughout the year with the employee, and in those meetings you're talking about how that employee is doing, you're going through the job description, reinforcing every process, talking to the employee about their selling they're doing, how many referrals they generated, how the appointments are going, what's happening with customer complaints. So we're doing this all throughout the year, either once a month or once a quarter at minimum. At the end of the year, or whenever the date's determined by the anniversary date of that employee, or some businesses will do them all in 1 month, at the end of that year, that fiscal year or calendar year, the employee needs a performance review. So this is a process for doing simple performance reviews using your TouchStone tools, using the job description, which is the best management tool. So it gets even better because it helps you with performance reviews. All the performance review is the work processes from the job description. So these are all the processes from that job description. This work plan here shows you how to just export it to Word and cut and paste it into this form or something like this. If you have another form you like better, use that. The point is, these are the processes, is the evaluation. That's what the employee is being evaluated on, their work. You can have some subjective things in here like this kind of thing, like initiative, dependability, work quality, things that they've done. This uploaded file form that you'll find in the library has got some other categories in it, like, what are your goals for next year and things like that. But this is the heart of the performance review. It's all these processes and how they're doing on those processes. So you give them a rating from 1 to 5, a grade, and then write comments on how it's going. So I've been a manager a long time, in my history a long time. This is the hardest part, right? The comment section. Before TouchStone existed, when I used to do performance reviews, this was so hard because you've got 10 employees, you give them a grade on something, and then you have to like think out of your head like, well, why did I give them that grade? So unless you're a really good manager keeping really diligent notes about every employee, that kind of thing is hard. But if you've been following the process in TouchStone, using the job descriptions as your management tool, using the job descriptions in your one-on-one meetings, using them for department meetings, reinforcing processes, referring to the process when someone's having a problem. If you've been doing all of that, then the filling out of these job descriptions is going to take, or these performance reviews is going to take like 10 minutes. Because I already know how that person's doing in all of these, because we've been talking about it for an entire year in many different formats. So it's super easy for a manager, if you're managing this way, if you're managing the processes, it's super easy to fill out a performance review. It should take 10 or 15 minutes at the most. And you should be able to write diligent comments here. So that's a bonus about it, but the even better part about it is if you've been following this process, then the employee is just, it's going to be easy with them because there's no surprises. They already know what you're going to say because you said it last month, you said it the month before, you said it last week. You've already talked about all of this over and over again. So if you have something negative to say about their conversion rate, and it's in the performance review, they should already have heard that many times over, which makes the meeting very purposeful. The comments you write aren't subjective. They can't accuse you of not liking them. It's all very objective. So this performance process kind of closes the circle on what needs to happen to manage the employee well. All of it culminates to the end of the year where they get this performance review. And it's very objective and clear how they're doing on each of their work items. So this performance review process is, again, in the library, in the process library. And if you don't know what I mean by that, right here. So we're in guiding the business now, right here. And when I select guiding and I go add from process library, I'm seeing all the processes related to guiding the business that are in this library. And here's performance review right here. Just in case it's not clear, every function has its own library. So over here, I'm going to see things related to human resources, admin, finance. Here in doing, operational type things, and here in getting, sales and marketing and advertising type things. So someone's asking about the performance review forms. John. I think what he's asking if they can be populated directly. So there's not like a button in TouchStone that you can click to make that happen, although that is on our development plans for this year. I won't say too much about it because sometimes I promise things that take a little longer. But what they are working on is for you to be able to take a position like this one and then go and have a button here that says create the performance review. And it will take all the processes and put it onto the form. It's probably not going to be here, though. It'll probably be, now that I'm thinking about it, I'll correct myself. It's probably going to be here in the control panel or in the management area. So that is something that's coming. But having said that, what you do now, let me just go back to this process. These work plans explain the step-by-step, so creating the evaluation forms from job descriptions. This is a step-by-step for that. There's even a little video right here which shows how to do it. So basically you're exporting the job description to Word, and then you literally just highlight the whole document, and then you open up our form and paste it right into the form. And what it creates is this right here. So the work items are pasted into the form. Once you've done this once, you don't have to do it again, because this is the performance review for the salesperson. Unless you add processes to that job description or remove them, this is always going to be here. So if I go as the manager, once I've done it for all the positions on the chart, I only have to do it once. As the manager, I can go here to the performance evaluation process. Here's that one for the salesperson. I can call it up, and there it is. I can save this as John, save. That's his performance review for 2017. I go back here, and I'm going to do another one for the next salesperson. Call it up. This is Bob, and that's his. So in a way, once you create the form on the Process Tools page, it's here for you to just fill out, and you can do it for every employee.